Many of you are probably aware that PvP IVs can be very complicated in Pokemon Go. I imagine a lot of you are already familiar with the rank 1 Pokemon, the maximum stat product Pokemon for the Great League and the Ultra League, where you want to have like the low attack stat and the high defense and the high HP stat. However, some of you may also be aware that there are breakpoints out there, that if you meet a certain attack check or a certain defense check, your Pokemon could be wildly better than the rank 1 Pokemon. And then on top of that, we also have charge move priority, which is based off the attack stat. So if you throw a charge move and your opponent throws a charge move at the same time, whoever has the higher attack stat is going to land theirs first, which can be very significant in a lot of matchups. So as you can tell, PvP IVs aren't just about stat product. It's not just about the rank 1, the 0, 15, 15. PvP IVs can be very complicated. Now I do cover a lot of these concepts and more in my PvP IVs Simplified video, so if you haven't seen that video already, I highly recommend you check it out. This video, on the other hand, goes even deeper and covers more advanced level PvP IVs and how to figure them out for your own Pokemon. Basically, if you got Pokemon A, Pokemon B, they both got their own little IV spreads, which one do you want to power up? This video is going to teach you to figure out exactly which one is going to be the best option. So buckle up, kids. We're going to Math City. So for the setup, there are going to be two resources you're going to want to have. That is a Google spreadsheet or like a spiral notebook or something like that. That way you can more easily keep track of your Pokemon's IV spreads and which, defense, attack, HP cutoffs that you're going to want to be mindful of. And then second thing, of course, is going to be PvPoke. PvPoke is basically the only way that you can identify these stats and cutoffs and, your personal stats, how to meet them, what to look out for. And to do this, you're going to want to use the battle function here. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be comparing two Shadow Machamps I have to try to figure out which one is going to be the best one for me to power up for the Premier Cup Ultra League. Why am I using Shadow Machamp for Premier Cup Ultra League for this video? Well, I already did that work, so it's fresh in my mind. Link in the description if you want to see the fruits of this research, my awesome Shadow Machamp in action. I imagine a lot of you came to this video because of that video. At any rate, Shadow Machamp. So here in my spreadsheet, right here, I have my stats already hammered out. I got the 51311, the rank 154, if you will, and what its actual stats are in PvPoke. Then I have my other candidate, the 11513, the rank 128 Shadow Machamp, with its stats here. Now, if you're wondering how do you get these stats, Ryan Swag, well, you go to the battle feature in PvPoke. Since I'm going in Ultra League, I select Ultra League, and I type in Machamp. And because I'm using a Shadow Machamp, I gotta click that little shadow flare right there, so it's a Shadow Machamp. And then, of course, I have the 51311 here, so 2477, no. I can power up one more time. So level 30, level 30.5. And then for the other Machamp, what was its stats again? Oh, I'm glad I wrote that down. Very easy to reference. The 11513. And then I just put in my other Machamp stats over here. So the 11513 at level 30.5. And and then you can see their stats. Clear as day. You got the 210.7 attack, the 105.3 defense, the 160 stamina. You can even see their stat products, like the overall here, so you can see what the difference is between them. And their overall stat product, it's actually like a difference of 3. So even though there's 26 ranks between them, the difference between them really isn't all that big. So you can see the true difference between their stats here, a slightly higher attack stat versus a slightly higher defense stat. So which one matters? Are we going to get some cool attack breakpoint here, or is there an important defense breakpoint that we need to be mindful of that's going to be better over here? Well, in order to figure this out, you have to figure out which matchups are going to be relevant for these Machamps to take on. Because right now, all that we really know is that in a mirror matchup, this one gets CMP, charge move priority, because it has a higher attack stat. But what else is going on in between? Well, there are several ways to figure out which Pokemon are relevant. You could use PvPoke's ranking list. You could use the Game Press tier list. Me personally, I like to use my infographics, kind of why I build them, to see which matchups are going to be relevant in the league that I'm looking at. And for the Shadow Machamp, I'm looking at the Ultra League Premier Cup. So which matchups are going to be important for this Machamp to be aware of? Well, as far as breakpoints are concerned, the first place you're going to want to look are going to be Pokemon that have really fast moves. So like, Dragon Breath, kind of fast move, Lick, kind of fast move, because if they get an attack breakpoint on your low defense Machamp, that could be really bad. That could be really, really bad. So first up, you're going to want to look at, these two guys. You're of course going to want to look at these two guys as well. They got that Lick damage. And then Vine Whip, also pretty fast, so these two guys, important. Mud Shots and the Water Gun, also pretty quick. And then these guys, they come up enough. You need to land the Rock Slide to like truly defeat them. So if they were to chip you down a little bit faster, that could be a pretty big deal in your fight. And of course, these guys too could also maybe chip you down before you get the KOing charge move you need. So also good to be aware of these guys. Then after those matchups, you also want to consider the matchups where your fast move damage could make a big difference. So if counter were to do one extra hit, could you possibly KO Pokemon more easily, or just KO them straight up with that counter damage? So matchups that could be good for that would be the Honchkrow. Honchkrow takes neutral to fighting type hits because it's dark and flying, so you can reasonably counter down a Honchkrow. Other Pokemon also include the Poliwrath and the Escavalier here, because if you can pummel them down even faster, maybe they'll miss a charge move on you, and that could be really good. There is also little robot man down here, Ferrothorn, and then you got the other two grass types as well. If you can clip them from getting another charge move, that's going to be massive. Same thing goes for the Empoleon here, and then also for the Alolan Muck. And then after that, you can also consider more niche matchups. For example, all of the Steel and Ice type Pokemon over here, I'd consider them to be more niche because like, you're going to win these matchups anyways. It's probably not a big deal to check them out, but if you're checking out all these other matchups and you're not really finding anything super significant, you still want to have that tiebreaker between the Pokemon you're looking at, well, then looking at these types of matchups could also be pretty big. The matchups that are less relevant that you might not really want to look at would be Pokemon that you're absolutely going to lose to, like, no matter what. So like Drifblim, you land the Rock Slide or not, that's going to be the big deal there. Like Counter Breakpoint, Hex Breakpoint, probably not going to come up. Same with Gliscor. The Charmers are also pretty low priority. And then the fighting types that just beat Machamp, also pretty low priority as well. Like, it could be worthwhile to know if you maybe get a breakpoint or if they maybe get a breakpoint. But breakpoints probably aren't going to help you in these specific fights. Of course, if you looked at all the other matchups and you really want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb, those matchups are also going to be well worth it to check out. Now, I imagine a lot of you guys are looking at this and going like, man, Ryan, Swag, that's a lot. That's a lot of simulations there. You're telling me I'm going to have to look at the individual stats and matchups on PvPoke of all of these different Pokemon? And yeah, the answer is yes. This is Advanced PvP IVs. This stuff is really tricky. Like, you thought this was gonna be easy? You thought you're going to sit back and, like, I don't know, go to PvPoke, press a secret button that you never knew about, and then blammo, everything is spelt out for you? No, man, this is hard. This takes a while. But the more you do it, the more you get used to it, the more you know what to look out for and what's important, what's not important, and the faster you can go through this. And quite personally, you don't have to go through every single one of these individual matchups. I think I did like maybe 17 to 20 of them for my Shadow Machamp, so you don't have to cover literally everything for each and every Pokemon. Just know what you got to pay attention to. But yeah, it takes time. And the time, I have to say, is pretty well worth it if you're trying to tiebreak between several Pokemon that you're looking to power up. Because at the end of the day, you're only going to power up one of them. That's going to be a huge Stardust, Candy, possibly Rare Candy, Fast TM, Charge TM dump onto that Pokemon. And you're going to be playing with it like 2 hours each day. It takes 2 hours to do the full set. So, sets go for, 2 weeks? So that's like 28 hours. You're going to sit on your phone tapping it for like over a day straight with the worst Pokemon when you could have took like an hour of your time to figure out which one's the better Pokemon. Yeah, I think having this skill might be pretty good. Of course, in my effort to make life easier for myself and everybody else in the world, I am developing a PvP IV compendium here, link in the description if you want to check out the compendium, where once these important stat cutoffs are identified, they're put into the compendium so we can just reference that right away. So like we know what the Azumarill checkoffs are for like Bastiodon. I did a whole video on this deep dive if you want to check it out, link up above and in the description so you can know everything you ever need to know about Azumarill IVs. But yeah, so all sorts of different checkoffs, and the more we find them, the more we can add to the compendium and make life a lot easier for everybody. If you want to contribute to the compendium yourself, you can comment below in the description here. Let me know which, spread, defense, attack, HP checkoffs you should be aware of for each specific Pokemon. YouTube comments can get a little bit off the rails, very hard to keep up with. So if you really want your spread added to the compendium, check out the Reddit post I have on it. Also link in the description as well, directly under the compendium here. If you post on Reddit with it, then it'll be seen, more likely to be seen than it will be in the YouTube comments. So help out with the compendium and be helped out by the compendium. So without further ado, let's get into how to do the deep PvP IV analysis, teaching you how to find out which IV spreads actually matter for your Pokemon. Rank 1? High stat product? Get out of here with that. We got real swag IVs. And don't worry guys, I'm not going to take you through all 20 plus matchups here. I'm just going to cover a few to give you knowledge of the base principles of what you need to know to do the deep PvP IV analysis. So starting out, this is the Ultra League Premier Cup. Let's check out that Lapras matchup. So first thing you want to check out is the max stat product Pokemon, so you know this is the best possible thing I could be fighting with my particular Pokemon here. And you click Battle. And a cool thing about PvPoke, if you're not aware with this website, you're not familiar with it, get familiar, really nice. You can see how the matchup actually unfolds. It shows you each fast move, each charge move. You can go in sandbox mode, so if you're like, I don't want to throw right away, I want to use counter a couple more times and just farm it down. And then it reached Surf, and I didn't shield Surf, and oh, I guess I can't straight farm it. I actually have to throw a cross chop or something. Yeah, so you can also do that. So getting familiar with PvPoke in general, really cool. But for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to show you some stuff you need to know. Here you can see how the matchups play out. So these are the different shield situations. So this is 0 shield, 0 shield. This is Machamp using 1 shield, but Lapras not using a shield, so on and so forth. So then you know what you need to shield, what you don't need to shield. For example, if Lapras has 2 shields and you only have 1 shield, can your Machamp take it out? Looks like it'll be pretty close. It's a pretty close matchup here. And then when it comes to the deep PvP IV analysis, all the breakpoints, that kind of stuff, well, that's what's down here. Oh yeah, all the good stuff. So you can see that against this Lapras, if I have a 209.45 attack stat at the bare minimum, you get a counter damage breakpoint. So instead of doing 14 damage, you're doing 15 damage. However, because we have less than 105.41 defense, we are taking a little bit extra Ice Shard damage here, which is probably why we're not able to make the 1-2 on the Lapras. So that could be significant. Now, this is our high attack stat Machamp. How does the higher defense one go? Well, what were those stats again on my defense Machamp? Oh, right, I got it right here on the spreadsheet, written down, so I can just go right in, the 1, 15, 13. And you can see it does have 106.5 on the defense. So let's see how it does. Yeah, and you can see here that this Machamp also is not making the 1-2 on the Lapras. What could possibly be going on? Oh, our Machamp's missing the attack breakpoint. So while we are getting the Ice Shard damage reduced, the attack, that ain't happening. So not exactly better. Now this is the maximum stat product Lapras. It might not be the actual Lapras you end up running into in the field, right? So what's more likely Lapras? Well, maybe you might find one with an 11 attack stats, or maybe it's a lucky Lapras. Somebody lucky traded to save on powering up in the Stardust. It's a lucky Lapras. How do we do against that? Because you're not going to be fighting the rank 1 every single day. Stuff could get attack breakpoints on you. So it's good to be aware of this stuff, right? So yeah, we got the 12, 15, 13. That sounds pretty reasonable. And against this guy, hey, we're getting it. The 1-2, pretty awesome. We're not getting an attack break point, but 220 sounds a little bit unreasonable. Like, you need to have a 12 attack IV, 0 defense, 2 HP. Like a light breeze could take down that Shadow Machamp. And yeah, and then you can see here that we are getting, a defense check. We're not getting like a really big defense check here, the 107.14. That's more like, the rank 1s kind of territory there, 1511. But we don't really need it because we are getting the 1-2, which is pretty cool. So things are looking up for defense Machamp. However, we can always bounce right back, see how our attack Machamp's doing. And you can see that the attack Machamp is getting that same exact swag too. So dead even between them, same defense breakpoints, same attack checkoffs. So as far as this matchup is concerned, both Machamps are even. So another Pokemon to look at would be the Venusaur matchup, a matchup that Machamp can defeat in the 2-shield situation, which is pretty hype. Definitely want to avoid getting a Vine Whip breakpoint here, am I right? So this is the rank 1 Venusaur. How are we faring against that? Well, you can see that the attack-weighted Machamp is able to get the 2-shield in, so that's definitely a plus. Maybe a breakpoint on counter damage could allow us to get the 1-1, maybe, possibly. But you can see that there's no hope for that attack breakpoint. Does not happen. It's just 6. You got 205 attack, congratulations. And then as far as the Vine Whip goes, yeah, you can see that 101.49 is the minimum required defense in order to get that. However, the max defense to guarantee that you avoid this is 108.63. Now, this isn't a defense Machamp. This is definitely an attack-weighted Machamp, and we're in between that figure. So, like, what does a lucky Venusaur look like? Reduce that. That sounds reasonable. 12, 14, 14. I could see myself fighting this in the Ultra League. Looks like, as far as the breakpoint is concerned, we're still making the checkoff. So, like, Venusaur would have to have a relatively unreasonably high attack stat in order to really threaten our Machamp here. Like, it'd have to be a very uncanny Venusaur to give us trouble with the Vine Whip. So, attack, defense, doesn't seem to matter either way here. Now, what specifically is going on in 2-shield, also important to look at, and you can see that we do have to bait twice with the Cross Chop, and then it ends on the Rock Slide. However, you can see here that it is a CMP tie. CMP is charge move priority, so you throw a charge move, they throw a charge move. The Pokemon with the higher attack stat gets that CMP tie. So because our attack-weighted Machamp gets that attack stat, we are able to land the Rock Slide. Well, what about our lower attack stat Machamp, the 207.1 attack stat? Will that get us CMP? Well, if you look at this, you got 210.7 versus 160.5. I mean, clearly we'll do it, right? Well, not exactly. This is a Shadow Machamp, and when it comes to CMP, it uses the actual attack stat, like the base non-boosted attack stat. So you have to compare the normal attack stat to the Pokemon. And yeah, we definitely clear it. 175.6, no doubt about it. We're going to get CMP each time. We don't even have to look at other Machamp because it's so obvious that he's going to get it. So once again, our two Machamps here are at a standstill. Then next up, we have the Charizard matchup. A matchup that Machamp can overcome should it land the Rock Slide. And you can see as the battle progression goes, we win. All shield scenarios. What? Dang, Machamp swagging it in the Ultra League, Rock Sliding it. My guy, getting him. Are we getting an attack break point? Does not look like it. Like 217.92, really unreasonable. But we are getting the 6, so hey, why not? And then when it comes to the fire spin damage, we need a 108.38 defense stat to reduce that. It doesn't appear like we need to reduce it. And if you check out our old Machamp, because we wrote these stats down, it only has 106.5, so that's not going to change anything there either. Of course, this is the rank 1 Charizard. Is it the Charizard we're actually going to encounter in the field? Maybe not. What does a lucky Charizard look like? There we go. Clean 2,500 Charizard. 12, 14, 15. I could see myself fighting this. And you can see once again, against this guy, we have, some relative good dominance in the matchup, as so long as we land the Rock Slide. But hold up. See that blue? See this? This is a CMP tie, man. A CMP tie. They could land that Dragon Claw, take us out, before our Rock Slide gets them, if they have a high enough attack stat. And And you can see that this lucky Charizard here has 174 attack stat, which is dangerously close to our non-shadow attack stat. If I toggle back to normal, you can see we got 175.6. So having a good attack stat could easily come up against the Charizard in the Ultra League when it comes to CMP, because these W's here could very easily be L's if it's landing a Blast Burn or a Dragon Claw before we can get our Rock Slide off. So what's our other Machamp like? Well, you'd have to punch it in again, but fortunately I already wrote it down. And yeah, the 128 here has 172.6 attack stat. 172.6. That is less than 174, which means that that cutoff could be very significant for this matchup, making my more attack-weighted Machamp be a lot more important for this particular matchup. And then when you go down, you check out the breakpoints. You know, 101.84 defense. We got that. We cleared that stat check off like years ago. And then 213.12, we're never going to reach that. Definitely does not matter. But getting that charge move priority, the slightly higher attack stat than Charizard's attack stat, apparently it's paying in dividends here because, you know, Rock Slide before Dragon Claw. What does Dragon Claw do to us? It does 45 damage. Yeah, that would take us out if we did not have this attack stat. Now, while these are just 3 examples of Pokemon that you should look at for your Pokemon's matchup, I guess specifically for the Premier Cup Ultra League, yeah, you're going to want to do this stuff for all the Pokemon that I had highlighted specifically for the Machamp matchup. And based off of what Pokemon you're looking at, what matchups you're looking at, you know, what Pokemon you want to compare it to can definitely change. So, yeah, keep that in mind. All this work for each and every Pokemon to find out which Pokemon's the best Pokemon. But as you can tell, if I went for the higher stat product one, the 172 whatever attack stat, well, that could be bad against the Charizard. In fact, I looked at a whole bunch of other matchups, right? And I found that, you know, 175 matters for Dragonite. And I'm meeting that with my 175.6. You know, 173 to 174 range can matter for Magnezone. So my little baby no attack stat Machamp here, he won't be getting that. And then when it comes to Escavalier, 172 to 173 can matter for that as far as charge move priority as well. And I know that with these last 2 matchups here, these are matchups that Machamp traditionally wins. But if we're in an uneven situation, you know, Drill Run. Do we want to take a Drill Run, or do we want to take it out with a Cross Chop before it can even land Drill Run? And Magnezone, it throws Wild Charge. You got a CMP tie with a Wild Charge. Yeah, man, you want to land your hit before they get the Wild Charge off. Like, double duh. So, of course, these matchups can be very significant, and that's why you want to look at all this dynamic stuff to know which Pokemon between, you know, the several candidates you're looking at actually matter. And obviously, having a spreadsheet to keep track of all this or a notebook definitely makes it a lot quicker too. Now, this specific example is a situation where I have won. You know, I got the good Machamp, the Machamp that does all the cool stuff that I want a Machamp to do. What about those situations where I have bad outcomes? For example, an attack-weighted Snorlax. If you guys are unaware, cool thing about Snorlax in the Ultra League is that it can get a breakpoint on Swampert. Yeah, if you have like a 143 attack stat or higher, you can get a breakpoint on Swampert, which allows you to beat it in the 2-shield situation real clean with the bonus to your lick damage. Now, of course, there are other matchups where this lick damage can also matter. You got Dragonite. If you have 143.09 attack, you can get that on there. Against Charizard, 143.6, it can matter there. And then for Clefable, you got 143.47 for the basic, and if it's a best buddy maxed out Clefable, you need 144.38. So if you make these, you know, this check off here on the lick damage, it can just be massive in those matchups. Like, let me show you Clefable here. And you can see here in the 2-shield situation, we're losing. We're like silly losing. Like, this thing has a whole dang Meteor Mash locked and ready to go for the next thing that comes in. It beat us. It really beat us. And yeah, you can see in the 1-shield situation, we could maybe force a tie. But overall, Clefable is going to carry the advantage over us. But what's this? Attack breakpoint. Yeah, to simplify this a little bit, a nicer spread is like the 15, 10, 15 on Snorlax. You don't have to use the spread that it suggests all the time. You can see I make that attack check off, big stamina, does this change things for the Snorlax? And Shazam, you now win the 1 shield situation. You still lose the 2 shield situation, it's very unfortunate, but you can now win the 1 shield situation over Clefable, where before you were just tying, maybe even losing in that situation because of that attack breakpoint. But of course you could be up against, you know, the best buddy Clefable here, so it's got an even higher defense checkoff that you're going to have to meet with the lick damage. You can see, oh dang, we missed it, and oh dang, we're losing now. So if you do have, like, you know, the higher attack stat here, you beat it in the 1 shield situation. So attack stat Snorlax looks pretty hype. And then to bleed on over to the Swampert here, let's go maximize Swampert, you know, the biggest Swampert imaginable. And you can see that we're losing because our attack stat isn't quite getting to that Swampert. It's 145.9. However, in the Ultra League, attack stat Swamperts are extraordinarily common because Swampert's so common that they want to have a high attack stat so they can get charge move priority in the mirror matchup. So running into an attack weighted Swampert of any kind is a fairly common thing to run into. So yeah, level 32 guy. What happens there? You can see that still pretty close. Oh, see that? We're missing the defense check. So we got to have a slightly tankier Snorlax, like the 14, 8, 10 here. That could pull it off. And with those 2 factors combined, avoiding the Mud Shot breakpoint on our Snorlax, and then getting the lick damage boosted on our Snorlax, yeah, you can see in the 2 shield situation, we can just lick those attack-weighted Swamperts clean. So knowing how cool this whole Swampert, Clefable, Dragonite, Charizard phenomenon is for Snorlax, I decided to look at all my Snorlax stats and write them down. And unfortunately, none of my Snorlaxes make the grade. These are some ideal spreads that I just wrote down to keep reference of. And then when it comes to my Snorlaxes, yeah, we're making the attack checkoff on some of them, but we're definitely not getting that defense checkoff on the Swampert, meaning that our little attack breakpoint fun time, it ain't happening. It is not happening against that Swampert, which is unfortunate. To make things even more sad, if you look at like the 14-112 that I have, 14-112, alright, we got level 28, 24-57, we could get another power up in there. Oh god, 25-01, that's horrible. Yeah, no, that means that we can't power up one more time because then we're too big for Ultra League. And that means that we're stuck at 2,457 CP. That's dumb as heck. Like all those stats that we're missing in between, you know, 2457 and 2,500, that's massive. So not only does this Snorlax not make the attack and defense checks needed to take on a Swampert really cool in the Ultra League, but it just kind of sucks overall. And looking at all the stat spreads that I do have for my Snorlaxes, the candidates that I could possibly build for an attack-weighted Snorlax, yeah, they're all pretty flat. They all just don't do it. And it's in these circumstances that you really just have to step back and go, that's something I can't build yet. That's something I'm going to want to keep my eyes peeled for, but it's just not happening for me. I'm going to have to take a pass on an attack-weighted Snorlax until I actually get one. Because I got to tell you guys, building this half-assed Snorlax doesn't feel good because you're going to have so many matchups you're going to get obliterated by because your stat spread is just so mediocre. I can tell you this from experience too. I do have a really bad Azumarill. Long subscribers of SwagTips know about my like rank butt Azumarill. Not a good Azumarill. You know, early on in Pokemon Go PvP, we didn't know all this stuff yet, and you know, it hit close to 1500, so I powered that one up. Found out later that the IV spread was just terrible. Altaria actually gets a breakpoint on my Azumarill, which is ridiculously bad. Imagine Altaria potentially beating your Azumarill with Dragon Breath damage. That's insane. That is the worst Azumarill. Am I right? So because of that, I did this in-depth stat analysis on Azumarill because Azumarill's a level 40 Pokemon. You know, you have to dump in so much Stardust to power up an Azumarill. If I'm going to power up an Azumarill, I'm going to want to make sure I do it right. I don't want a okay Azumarill to replace my awful Azumarill. I want a great Azumarill. And then because of that, I did my whole Azumarill deep dive stat analysis. Once again, link in the description if you want to see the fruits of that research. And it allowed me to identify the attack and defense checkoffs that I would want to have on an Azumarill that I'd actually put all that Stardust in. And, you know, about 3 weeks ago, after GoFest, did some trades with my friend Jacob. I got one of those great Azumarils, and now I have an awesome Azumaril to use. And I didn't have to power up a very okay one. I just have my awful one, and now I have a great one. And I'm still really low on Stardust, but I actually have some Stardust, and that's important. So you just have to step back sometimes and realize that, hey, the Pokemon I want to power up, the cool thing I want to do, the stat checkoff I want to make, I can't do that right now. And I'm going to have to use a different strategy in different Pokemon until I actually get that. Because if I do power up this Pokemon and, oh man, that Swampert's going to get the 1 extra damage on me, that will come up. And it will flip your matchups. And it'll make you kind of sad. Because deep down inside your heart, you know that one day you're going to come across the better IV Snorlax. You're going to have to power that one up. And then this one's just going to be the bad Snorlax. And now you guys know just about what you need to know to do an in-depth PvP IV stat analysis, so you can make sure that the Pokemon you're powering up for the Great League or the Ultra League is the best possible Pokemon that you can power up for that league. Once again, to recap, things that you're going to want to have. You're going to want to have a spreadsheet or a notebook so you can write all these numbers down so it's way easier to keep track of them. Second thing you're going to want to have is PvPoke, because if you don't have PvPoke, how the heck are you going to do this, man? You're going to do this on PokeBattler? I haven't used... I love Cilantro, and I love PokeBattler, but ain't no PvPoke when it comes to PvP. All I'm saying there. Another cool resource to have would be the PvP IV Compendium. Once again, link in the description, so maybe this is already figured out for you by the point in time you check it out. And yeah, having like an infographic to reference for the relevant matchups, maybe the Game Press tier list, maybe the PvPoke rankings section, so you know which matchups you're going to want to deep dive on for your specific Pokemon, because there's like 300 plus Pokemon in this game, and you can't deep dive them all, man. You'd go insane. You'd go crazy doing that. And then once you've identified the relevant matchups for the Pokemon that you're trying to compare, yeah, compare it to those matchups, and make sure you compare it to the rank 1, so you know how that goes. And then compare it to higher attack stat versions of that Pokemon, more common iterations of the Pokemon. I like to go with the rank 1, the low attack, and then I like to go for a okay attack stat, like, you know, like a 4 to 7 attack stat range, and then I like to look at like the lucky and beyond. And then of course, to add to that, it's also good to know like what's going on in the meta, what stat spreads you might want to look out for. For example, if attack weighted Snorlax is really good and you're trying to get a defense check on a Snorlax, it might be important to look at, you know, like the 14, 10, 11 or whatever to see if you're avoiding that super boosted lick damage. It does sound like a lot of work, and yeah, it is a lot of work, but if you want to make sure you're powering up the right Pokemon, well, this is the kind of stuff you got to go through so you don't end up wasting your Stardust and wasting your time. And there you have it, guys. The Advanced PvP IV analysis. How to do it. How to find out which Pokemon you should power up for PvP in Pokemon Go. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below. Let me know what's up. I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. And of course, once again, if you do have some stats you already know about, go on to Reddit, post on to my little mega thread on the PvP IV Compendium, and get it added on the list. Help people out, and the list in return will help you out in the future when you're trying to figure out which IV spreads actually matter. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support Swagman on Patreon, link in the description.